Talking Trees with Lily and Jad. Welcome to Talking Trees. In today's episode, we bring you an inspiring conversation with Dirk Dujesiefken, a highly respected German arborist. We'll explore his lifelong dedication to tree care, his journey to founding the Institute of Arboriculture in Hamburg, and his vision for the future of the field. To watch the full interview, head over to youtube.com/arborist. The link is in the description. Let's dive into this enlightening conversation.
Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive.
Yeah, this time we're really branching out, aren't we?
We are. It's all about urban forestry this time, and we've got an amazing interview to dig into from the 2023 Arbor Chat. And this interview with Dirk Dujesiefken, it's packed with insights.
He really is a legend in the field.
Okay, so for those just tuning in who might not be familiar with Dujesiefken's work, set the stage for us.
Well, you could say he's been a champion for trees his whole life. I mean, we're talking decades of experience, research, and advocacy. What I find most fascinating about him is how his own path kind of mirrors this growing awareness of trees in urban settings.
Right. It's like his career blossomed right alongside the field itself.
Exactly.
So take us back to his early days. He starts out studying forestry, right, back in the 1970s.
Yeah, which, think about it, back then, arborist as a term, as a profession, it wasn't really a thing yet.
It's crazy, isn't it? How much things have changed.
It really is. But even back then, during his forestry studies, you can see this fascination with the urban environment starting to take root for Dujesiefken.
And a lot of that stemmed from a pretty unique experience he had, right? The 1973 International Garden Exhibition in Hamburg.
Oh, absolutely a turning point for him.
I can only imagine this young Dujesiefken, probably surrounded by concrete his whole life up to that point.
And suddenly, boom, he's immersed in this world of urban green spaces, seeing firsthand how they could transform a city, you know?
It must have been eye-opening.
Completely. And what's really interesting is this was all happening right when the book, The Limits to Growth, was making waves.
Yeah, that was a big one, 1972.
Right.
Long before, like, mainstream environmentalism.
Right ahead of its time.
Right. But it really got people thinking about our impact on the planet. And I imagine for Dujesiefken, those two things, the garden exhibition and limits to growth, it all just clicked, didn't it?
Yeah, it did, yeah. He saw the vital role trees play in a city's well-being, and at the same time, this growing need to protect them, especially with cities becoming more and more concrete jungles.
Right, because it's not just about planting trees. It's about understanding them, advocating for them, making sure they're actually thriving.
And that's really the heart of Dujesiefken's work. He doesn't just love trees, he fights for them.
And a big part of that fight was recognizing a need for, like, formal structures around tree care, which leads us to the late 1980s, right?
Exactly. Dujesiefken, at this point, he's deep into his research, but he starts to see this glaring gap in the field of arboriculture.
Like, what was missing?
Well, for one, there wasn't really a unified approach to research. Like, arborists were doing great work, but it was kind of scattered, you know? And there wasn't a central place for sharing knowledge, for learning.
So there was this need to bring it all together.
Exactly.
And that's where Dujesiefken steps in and founds the Institute for Baumflage.
Huge moment. He saw a need and he took action.
He really did. And this wasn't just some vanity project. This institute became the foundation for so much of the progress in urban forestry we see today.
Totally agree. And it's all rooted in those three pillars he established: education, research, and consulting.
Okay, so unpack those a little for us. How did they work together? What was the vision there?
Well, the education part was huge. It was about taking all this complex tree science and making it accessible, not just for scientists, but for practitioners, for enthusiasts, for anyone who wanted to learn.
So almost like democratizing tree knowledge in a way, right?
Yes. And then, of course, you have the research pillar, which for Dujesiefken, it wasn't just about doing a few studies here and there. It was about this ongoing, dedicated exploration into how trees function, especially under stress in urban environments. I mean, his dedication to research over 40-plus years, it's incredible, really.
And it's that research that really forms the backbone of everything else, right? The education, the consulting, it all stems from this solid foundation of knowledge.
100%. But then you need that third piece, the consulting. Because knowledge is only as good as its application, right?
Exactly. So how did that play out, the consulting?
Well, it's about bridging that gap between the science and the real world, taking all those research findings and working directly with communities, with cities, to actually address tree-related problems.
So it's like this beautiful cycle The research fuels the education, which then informs the consulting, which then sparks new research questions.
A perfect ecosystem for urban tree care.
I love it. And it's through this multifaceted approach that Dujesiefken makes some of his most significant contributions, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
Like his research on pruning, it revolutionized the way we think about tree care.
It really did. You see, before Dujesiefken, pruning, it was often seen as this, like a purely aesthetic thing.
Right, just making the trees look nice and tidy.
Exactly. But his research showed how crucial proper pruning is for a tree's health. Like, if you don't prune correctly, you can actually weaken the tree's natural defenses.
So it's not just about making them pretty. It's about understanding their immune system, essentially.
Precisely. And how to work with those systems, not against them. Dujesiefken's research showed that with the right techniques, pruning can help trees thrive. They live longer, healthier lives. And the impact of this, his work on pruning has been translated into 10 languages, with more on the way. I think they're working on Chinese and Hebrew versions as we speak.
Wow, that's incredible. Talk about a global movement for better tree care.
It really is. And this deep understanding of tree biology, it's also at the heart of his work on the CODIT model.
Okay, CODIT. Compartmentalization of decay in trees. Right. Sounds kind of intense.
It is, but it's also fascinating. Basically, Dujesiefken cracked the code on how trees heal themselves.
Okay, I'm listening.
Yeah.
Tell me more. Because I thought trees didn't heal the same way our bodies do.
They don't. So when a tree gets wounded, it doesn't just regenerate new tissue. Instead, it compartmentalizes the injury. It basically walls it off to stop the decay from spreading.
It's like it builds an internal barrier or something.
Yeah. And the CODIT principle, as Dujesiefken expanded it, it helps us understand how those barriers form, how effective they are, even how different pruning practices can impact the process. It's like having this X-ray vision into the inner workings of a tree.
That's a great way to put it. Like we can now read a tree's history, its health, by understanding how it's compartmentalized these past injuries.
Exactly. And that knowledge, then we can use that to make more informed decisions about how to care for them moving forward. And this is where his work in Hamburg comes in. Because in the 80s, his team, they pioneered the first tree risk assessment system in the city.
This was at a time when, wasn't it, if a tree looked even a little bit iffy, they just chop it down.
Pretty much. Decisions about removing trees, they were often driven by fear back then.
Right. Big tree. Scary. Old tree. Get rid of it.
Yeah, and Dujesiefken's system, it really challenged that. It brought in this new era of informed decision-making, using science-based assessments to figure out, okay, which trees actually pose a risk and which ones can be, safely preserved.
It's like moving away from this knee-jerk reaction to a more nuanced, data-driven approach.
And that was huge, especially for mature trees, which Dujesiefken always emphasizes how important they are. They're like the crown jewels of our urban forests.
Oh, I bet, because those older trees, they just provide so much more, don't they?
So much. Shade, carbon absorption, they clean the air. Losing a mature tree, it's like losing a vital organ almost.
Right. And speaking of knowledge, Dujesiefken, he's not one to keep all his discoveries locked away in a lab somewhere. He's written, tons of books and articles, hasn't he?
He's incredibly prolific. He really wants to make this knowledge accessible to everyone, not just scientists. He's written about tree biology, care, protection. His writing has been so influential, even beyond academia.
And it's not easy to take complex scientific concepts and make them understandable and, dare I say, interesting for a wider audience.
He's really good at it. And on top of all that, he's an honorary professor.
Talk about dedication. He could just be relaxing on a beach somewhere.
He's got this passion for nurturing the next generation of arborists, absolutely. And it's not just formal education either. He's also a driving force behind these massive conferences. The Deutsche Baumpflegetage, for example.
Okay, for those of us who don't speak German, what is that?
Oh, sorry. It's one of the biggest arboriculture conferences in Germany. It brings together scientists, practitioners, policymakers, everyone who's passionate about trees.
What a cool idea.
It is, and Dujesiefken has been a leading voice at those for years, advocating for better communication and collaboration in the field.
So it's like he's building bridges between research and the real world, making sure that all this knowledge is actually being used to make a difference.
And that's what's so inspiring about his work. He's not content with just studying trees. He wants to protect them. But he's also realistic about the challenges.
Oh, I bet. Because even with all the progress we've made, there are still some pretty big threats facing urban trees, aren't there?
Absolutely. And Dujesiefken himself identifies three main ones: climate change, emerging diseases, and of course, good old-fashioned urbanization.
Okay, yeah, those are pretty big ones. Let's dive into those. Climate change first, I guess, because that feels like the 800-pound gorilla in the room these days, doesn't it?
It really does. As temperatures rise and rainfall patterns change, even established trees are showing signs of stress.
We're seeing it everywhere, aren't we? Drought, heat stress, trees are struggling.
And it's easy to forget how much we rely on those trees, especially in urban environments. They do so much for us, cooling our cities, cleaning the air. They're not just pretty decorations.
Right. They're essential for our well-being. And like you said, it's not just climate change they're dealing with.
No, there are all these new diseases and pests popping up too.
Which Dujesiefken talks about a lot, right? Like, he mentions those diseases, Maceria on plane trees and Pseudomonas on horse chestnuts. They're becoming more and more common.
Yeah, and those are nasty ones. They can wipe out entire populations of trees. And because they're often introduced from other parts of the world, our trees, they haven't had time to build up any resistance. Their immune systems just aren't ready.
So it's like they're being hit with this double whammy. Climate change is stressing them out, and then these new diseases come along, and it's like game over.
Exactly. And then on top of all of that, you've got urbanization, which is almost like a silent killer.
How so?
Well, think about it this way. As more and more people are crammed into cities, our urban forests, they're losing their habitat.
It's like we're loving them to death almost. We want more trees for all the good they do, but we're also squeezing them into these tiny little spaces.
Exactly. And Dujesiefken, he says this is why we need a fundamental shift. We need to move away from this tree care mindset to a tree site protection mindset.
Tree site protection. Okay, I like the sound of that. What does he mean by that?
So tree care, that's often focused on the individual, right? How's the tree doing? What can we do if it gets sick? But tree site protection, it's much bigger.
It's about the whole environment the tree lives in, right?
Yeah. The soil, the roots, making sure the trees have enough space. We have to remember a tree isn't an island. It's part of this interconnected web.
Which we forget sometimes when we're sticking them in these little concrete squares.
All the time. And Dujesiefken is a big believer in teamwork. It's not just on arborists. It's architects, city planners, all of us working together to make our cities places where trees can actually thrive.
So it's not just about planting more trees. It's about designing our cities in a way that supports them long term.
Yes. And this is where Dujesiefken gets really fired up about preserving mature trees. He's not a fan of that term climate trees.
I've heard him talk about that. It's like a pet peeve of his or something.
Well, because he's like, all trees are climate trees. They all contribute. What worries him is this rush to just plant new trees sometimes overshadows the incredible value of the mature trees we already have.
Because a brand new tree, even if it's some super species or whatever, it's not going to give us the same benefits as a 100-year-old oak.
No way. Those mature trees, they're the heavy lifters. They're absorbing so much carbon, providing shade, cleaning the air. Their root systems are holding everything together. Losing one of those, it's a tragedy.
It's like losing a library or something. All that history, all those benefits, just gone.
It's tough because you need both, right? Planting new trees is important for the future, but we can't forget about the ones who are already here working so hard for us.
It's about respecting our elders. At least in the tree world, right?
Exactly. And it goes back to that tree site protection idea, creating an environment where trees can thrive for generations.
So even though Dujesiefken is this like world-renowned scientist, there's also this real activist spirit to his work, isn't there?
Oh, huge. This isn't just academic for him. He wants to get his hands dirty and save trees. Like right now, he's doing this real deal project with the University of Hamburg. They're trying to save horse chestnut trees.
From that bacteria.
Nah.
The one that's been wiping them out everywhere.
That's the one, Pseudomonas. It's nasty. But what I think is so great is they have this goal to have a solution within 3 years. They're not messing around. This is real-world problem solving.
That's so inspiring, though, because it shows how much power there is in applied knowledge,
Yes.
right? They're taking what they know and actually using it to make a difference.
Absolutely. And Dujesiefken is always pushing for that.
Because it's one thing to say protect trees. It's another thing to actually give people the tools to do that, right?
Absolutely.
Especially with all the development happening.
100%. He wants to make sure everyone, from developers to everyday citizens, feels empowered to advocate for trees.
It's like he's this amazing mix of scientist and advocate and so humble.
The best combination. And honestly, that's what makes him such an effective voice for trees, because it's clear he really, truly cares.
You can hear it in his voice when he talks about trees.
You can. This has been a really great conversation.
I agree. I feel like I learned so much preparing for this deep dive into Dirk Dujesiefken's work. And, it's easy to take trees for granted, especially in a city. But he reminds us they're not just these passive things, they're alive. And they're doing so much for us, even when we don't realize it.
It's true. There are silent partners in this whole urban living experiment, aren't they?
They are. And they deserve our protection. So next time you walk by a tree, maybe give it a little nod or something.
I love that. A little thank you for all the hard work.
Exactly. Until next time, everyone, keep looking up.
Thanks for tuning in to this special edition of Talking Trees. We hope you enjoyed this insightful conversation. We truly appreciate the support of our subscribers, as your contributions make it possible for us to bring you exclusive content like this. If you found this episode valuable, stay with us for more in-depth interviews and expert insights available only to our subscribers. Until next time, thank you for your continued support, and keep growing your passion for trees.